This week was a very, very busy week in my podcast world. I had many interviews this week with some many amazing people, and I am loving doing this podcast more than ever. I love bringing you these stories of people and just being able to share their experiences or their inspiration or what they do, and it just makes me really happy to do this. My guest today was probably one of the top 3 people that I've interviewed that I really, really enjoyed speaking with. He is an author. He is a writer. He's had a very, very interesting life, which you'll hear about in the interview. Growing up as a Mormon in a society that doesn't necessarily accept LGBTQ plus people. His family had to accept him. He went through some homelessness. He escaped a serial killer. And the main part of what we were talking about today was he escaped a Ouija board and gave direction on that. So we talked for well over an hour just on the podcast, which I normally don't do. I try to keep my podcast actually to 30 to 40 minutes. If I go to an hour, that's fine. I never go over an hour, and we went well over an hour, probably close to an hour and a half total. And then even after the podcast ended, we spoke for another 35 or so minutes. And he's just a great guy. He has such an interesting story. And I'm excited for you to hear Scott Wells' life adventures, because that's what we talked about today. We talked about everything, again, from him growing up in the Mormon religion in Idaho in a small town to meeting his husband, Paul, and just living in Atlanta, living in LA, and I really, really enjoyed the conversation. He had a good vibe and a good aura about him, and I just really, really enjoyed it. So let me know what you think about the podcast after you listen to it today. Leave a comment, and thanks so much for listening to my podcast. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. Today's guest is Scott Wells. He is a best-selling thriller author and Killer Nashville Claymore Award finalist for Marked by the Ouija, a spine-chilling horror about a group of teens who unleash something deadly through a Ouija board. He's also author of Phantom Beach, his suspenseful novel, originally a screenplay set in the Grand Canyon, where 2 estranged brothers stumble into a danger while honoring their father's final wish. You can go to scottwellsauthor.com. I will put all of Scott's information in the description of this podcast. You can go check him out. But welcome to the show, Scott. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled.
So I heard about you because I heard a lot about you. So I'm going to just start. The first thing I want to ask you is about your growing up. When you grew up in a very strict religious community. Tell me about your childhood growing up in that community.
I did. I grew up in a very conservative small town in Idaho, very faith-based religion. They basically teach you to conform before they encourage your curiosity.
Yeah.
From really, really pretty young, I recognized that there was something different. I just didn't fit the mold that everyone seemed to have for me. And I think a lot of people are in that situation, especially if they're growing up in religious households and communities and things. So I did everything I could possibly do to fit in that mold or squeeze myself in that mold. And it just seemed like no matter what happened, it just never worked. I mean, the area that I grew up in, it's a small farming town in the middle of a valley in Idaho. It's beautiful, but it's very boring, and it's extremely conservative. So when there's only limited information and limited resources that I felt that I have, that I could really try to figure out who I was. I even went on a Mormon mission, riding the white shirts and ties, and I went to Detroit for 2 years, which ended up being a very pivotal point of my life. While I was there, I ended up having the great honor of getting to know Rosa Parks on a personal level.
Wow.
Yeah, we were teaching the lady that living into the house next to her, and so every Tuesday for 6 months, for an hour, we would sit on her front porch and she would just ask us questions. We never tried to talk to her about the church. She never, never once mentioned anything that she was known for. I knew that she was somebody because we had to take Rosa Parks Boulevard to get there, but I had no idea who she was. And I think that was part of the innocence of what made our relationship and our friendship. The other cool thing about that is it just seemed like the ice cream truck would always come by at the same time. And it was very important to her. She wanted to buy us an ice cream cone. There was one time when we were late coming out of a meeting and it passed, and she said, "Jump on your bikes," gave us $1, "Jump on your bikes and catch it." Well, the next week, the meeting went a little bit longer and she refused to let it go. So she literally stood in front of the ice cream truck, and when it backed up to go around her, she moved in front of it, and it backed up to go around her the other way, and she stepped in front of it. And she's like, "You're not leaving until my boys get ice cream."
That is amazing.
That gave me a really good understanding of the type of person she was, and she was incredible. So, but that was one of the highlights of my life that ended up from my mission. There was another experience on my mission that really started the change, and with me being honest with myself and coming to terms with the person that I wanted to be, where I was, and how I needed to get there, and. And I say this because I don't want to bash anyone else's beliefs, but this is just me basically.
It's your story.
It's my story, exactly.
Yeah.
It's me reclaiming my beliefs. So there was a girl that we were teaching, and we got to one of the lessons, and she confided into us that she was gay, and that her family had disowned her friends, her job fired her. She had tried to join several other churches, and they shunned her, and we were her last option. And
this was in Detroit?
This in Detroit, yes.
Okay.
So she, we had weekly meetings set up. I had to go back and report to the upper levels what was going on with everyone that we were teaching, and they basically told me, "Don't go back. Basically ghost her." And we missed her next appointment. She called. She's like, "I thought we had an appointment today." And the calls became more frantic, and they became more frequent. It was a couple days after, and she just stopped calling. And that experience haunted me for years. And to the point when I got off my mission, and I started to come to terms with who I was, coming out, and that entire process, I thought of her, and I actually drove from California, where I was living at the time, all the way back to Detroit to try and find her.
Wow.
And I just wanted to tell her, "Hey, it's okay. I am so sorry that I treated you that way, and that's the way that I was being told to handle it. But unfortunately, it was too late." Oh. And it's something that I vowed at that point. I'll never let anyone tell me what to do when it comes to someone and their life. My belief is, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, then it's none of your business, basically. And my mom taught me to, from a very young age, she always taught me, she's one of the most positive, optimistic people I think I've ever met. And she always told me, she said, "Stand up for what you believe in, even if it's not the most popular opinion." And so when I decided to leave the church, it was one of the hardest decisions that I've made, because I was her only, this is generation upon generation upon generation Mormon, and I was her only child that went on a mission, and that's really what she wanted. And now her only child was telling her, "Hey, I'm leaving the church because I don't agree with this anymore." And that experience on a mission was a big part of it. There were some other things, but that really started to shape.
Did she accept it though when you came out?
No. Neither did my dad. So I wasn't allowed home for 4 years.
Okay.
My dad, basically, he would still go to coffee with his childhood friends, even up until his 80s. Years later, we ended up, my family turned out, they made that change, and we found a way to build a relationship. And it was all the trauma and all the fear and all the guilt that I was feeling before was on the other side was so much better and so worth it, because now we could have an honest, unapologetic relationship, and very supportive. And my husband, when they met him, I mean, it took him a while to come around, but I have two other brothers and a sister, and they referred to Paul when they were still there as their fourth son.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it was, my family actually had my oldest brother called a meeting with the family and said, look, we don't have to like this. We don't have to understand it. We don't have to agree with it, but we have to accept it. Because if we don't accept it and accept who Scott chooses to live his life, then we're going to lose him forever. And which is true. And so I really have to give it to my family, props, because they stepped out of their comfort zone to find a way. And now he's just another one of the family, right?
Yeah,
they just, he's hot Paul to my sister-in-law.
Yeah. And did you, and what about his family? Is his family accepting of you?
Yes. So he grew up in Texas, in a small town in Texas, and they're not necessarily religious, but it's the Bible Belt. So, they completely accepted me. His dad will say, hey, what's going on with Scott? How's Scott doing? And Paul will say, well, did you call to talk to me, or did you call to talk about Scott? So we've got a great relationship. It's a good life. I'm very fortunate, and I'm very thankful that things have worked out.
Yeah, you are very fortunate, because I'm fortunate as you are as well. So both of our families love. Like my mom calls my husband her son, and same thing with his mom and dad. Awesome. They call me their son. So I feel very fortunate, but that's not all families. So we're very lucky, I think.
I completely agree. When I was living in Atlanta, I was volunteering for a suicide prevention line, and the amount of calls and the kids that I spoke with was just, it was overwhelming. And ever since then, that was probably 25 years ago, almost 25 years ago. Ever since then, every year I try to do some sort of fundraising campaign or donation campaign, because I was homeless for a while as well. I try every year to help them. People helped me when I needed it. I believe in helping others. It's just a better society. It's a better world if people do that.
I can already tell what type of person you are, because you drove from California to Detroit for that woman. And that is, a majority of people would not do that long of a drive. So that is so amazing that you did that. So that just, you've got good karma coming your way if it hasn't already hit you. So
thanks. I wish I could have made it and been able to catch her in time. That situation set off a long list of other things that hopefully I can help make sure that doesn't happen again. And I can stand up for those that are silent and use my voice and can practice what my mom said. Even if it's not the most important opinion, I need to stand up for what I believe in. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
And it's so important today because, they're getting rid of the suicide hotline for LGBTQ. And so, it's kind of crazy that this is all happening now. And I don't want to get political in the show, but it's so disappointing to me that they're doing that, because the LGBTQ plus community has a higher suicide risk than other kids. So the fact that they took that away, it's just heartbreaking to me.
I can't understand it. Years ago, when I was working on the suicide prevention line for Youth Pride in Atlanta, I wanted to write an article about the youth suicide rate of Mormon youth, because at the time it was so much higher than any other individual religion. And I tried to find an outlet where I could get that published and just be able to help in some way. Hey, it's okay. You're not invisible. You are important. You have something to value. And at that time, I couldn't get anything. And so here we are 25 years later, and we're almost in that same situation. So it's unfortunate.
Tell me your homeless story, because obviously you turned out well.
So when I lived in Atlanta, my dad, my brothers, I guess all of us, we're very bullheaded, and when we get something in our mind, in our head, we're going to accomplish it. Okay. We're going to do it. And when unexpected things happen, and it happens to everyone, and it prevents you from doing that, that causes fear, anxiety, grief, instability. And at the time, I just didn't really understand how to deal with it. And what happened is I kept spiraling and spiraling until the point where I was kicked out of my apartment because I couldn't pay. And I was living in my car I had a Geo Metro.
Oh, wow. Not a big place to live.
No. And my friends called it the girl skate because it looked like a little white roller skate. But and then I couldn't even afford the $150 car payment for that, and they repoed that.
Oh, wow.
So I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I mean, I could have asked for help, and I'm sure that my family, despite everything that was going on at the time, would have helped, and I'm sure my friends would have helped, but I let my ego get in the way. And what changed for me was back when I was 8, I was in my oldest brother's room, kind of idolized him, and he came in and found me and kicked me out, got mad at me. I think I wanted to listen to his Kiss records, and he kicked me out. And then about 15 minutes later, he came in and he said, "Well, you were obviously in my room looking for something," and he handed me this book that it had his name written on the end of it, on the opposite the spine. And it was a book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. I hadn't seen that book. That's not what I was looking for. But I think he's like, well, let me just find something that I don't want, and I'm just going to give it to him and kind of pacify him. Well, what happened is that book changed my life.
Wow.
That book, I've read it 11 times, and I gave it to a friend yesterday to help with the situation. But that book, it was one of the very few possessions that I had that I kept with me. And I started reading that book, and it's about changing your thought process. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he says in the book is it's not about the amount of the intelligence you have. It's how you use the intelligence that you do have, and, he talks about, basically the cup half full or cup half empty type thing, but he goes into a lot of detail that's easy to understand. And that book helped me to kind of step away from the anxiety and the fear and the embarrassment and the shame of being homeless and come up with a plan on how I was going to correct that situation and get out. And within 6 years, I was able to buy my house and I started a business.
Wow. That's a turnaround.
Yeah, it was. And I owe it to people who've helped me along the way, as well as that book.
What was the name of the book again, just in case our listeners missed it?
The book is called The Magic of Thinking Big, and it's by David Schwartz.
Okay. I'll put a link to that to Amazon in the description of this podcast as well, if anybody wants to get that as well.
It's fantastic. It like I said, whenever I start to feel down or I feel like my life is going off in the wrong direction, I'll read it again, and every single time it gets me back on track and helps me focus on what's really important and on the roadmap of where I want to be, so I would highly recommend it.
And then you made a success out of yourself 6 years later, right? How did you get into becoming an author and making these amazing stories?
I have always been interested in writing. My mom, thankfully, she saved everything. I mean, I wouldn't call her a hoarder.
And not to interrupt you, but I have to just say, I went to your website and I love the pieces of when you were 8 and you were a kid writing the stories that I'm assuming that she kept. I love that part of your website. It was so cute and just heartwarming.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Okay. Is she saved all of those stories that I had written. It started in second grade, and that kind of, I think, started the process. And then over the years, one of the things that has helped me get through the trauma and the fear and the guilt and the shame in my life has always been, you have to address it, you have to face it, and you've got to figure out a way to get over it and through it and visualize yourself on the other side of it and what it feels like. And so one of the tools that I used was writing, whether it was a journal, whether it was a story, whether it was just writing a letter to myself telling me everything that I didn't feel that I can speak out loud, or I couldn't talk to anyone else because of fear of retribution or shame or, embarrassment or bullied or whatever. So that has always been part of me. What changed though is about 16 years ago, I was backpacking in the Grand Canyon with two friends, married couple, and I ran into I ran into him first. I didn't realize who he was at the time until years later, but he was a serial killer. And
Oh, wow.
yes, and he tried to kill my friend and I because he wanted my friend's wife. So
This is a real story?
True story, absolutely true story.
Wow.
So I'm one of those people that crazy things happen to, but they always turn into that. I believe that fear and trauma can be a roadblock to personal growth and transformation to getting where you want to go, or you can turn them into stories that help that transformation, encourage that transformation. And that's what I was trying to do. So it was Phantom Ranch that I wrote the movie about. And I'm currently in the process of adapting that to the book. And then in the meantime of that, I didn't know what I was doing. I had this story that was just incredible. I mean, it was just unbelievable to me that it actually happened. So I found a book coach to kind of help me, to teach me what I didn't know. And so that transitioned into Marked by the Ouija. So I wrote that story. It's a short story, and that's the one that is out right now. And that is also a true story about an experience that I had when I was 16, and we were playing with the Ouija board, and I'm convinced my friend is dead because of it. And I didn't believe in it. I'm one of those people, I want to see it before I believe it. I'm not going to take anyone else's word. And when that experience happened, I let it sit with me, and I felt really guilty because it was my board. I bought it, and it was my friend that paid the price. And it took me a long time to understand how that happened and why that happened.
Okay.
And I feel guilty about it because it was my board. So one of the ways that I could move out of that guilt and that shame was to be able to share it and write that story and hopefully help other people that are considering using a board to do it responsibly. Because I didn't know the rules. We didn't know the rules. We didn't know what to do.
Was it just the two of you using it?
There were three of us. So
okay.
I had purchased it at a small variety store. You can buy them at Toys R Us. The age range starts at 8. It's crazy. I say, you think it's a game, so I ended up buying it. I wasn't home. I was working. My friends found it. They were waiting for me to get off and get home, and they started playing with it, and they had their own experience, and it freaked them out so much they have not talked to me to this day. They did tell me that night, they called me at work and told me about the experience that they had, and that they had burned a board in a garbage can right outside the back door. And when I got home from work, I saw the ash, I smelled the lighter fluid, and I was annoyed that they went into my room. It was an invasion of privacy, and fine. But there wasn't anything I could do about it. So this was Sunday night. Monday morning, I went out to go to school the next day, and a brand new board was sitting on top of the garbage can. Not 1 ounce of ash. Not even in my room was literally on the other side of the wall. So there's no way that if they would have even vacuumed it up, I would have heard it. There was no scent of lighter fluid. So I thought they were playing a joke. And, when I went to school, they completely avoided me. To this day, they haven't talked to me, and they haven't said anything about their story.
So they were friends of school, and they just completely ignored you the next day. They have not spoken to you since. But do they know that it reappeared?
Yes, I believe that they know, because a week later, I thought, well, okay, now I want to play it, and it was part of I think one of the reasons why I was kind of annoyed at them and ticked off is that they got to play it before I did. So the week later, the weekend after, me and two friends decided that we were going to play it, and we had a experience where one of those friends is just dead because of it, basically. And what I found out later was that friend that passed away, he lived 2 doors down from me. And that night when my other friends were playing with the board, he knew I was at work, but he had heard a bunch of noise coming from the house. So he went over to the house to see what was going on and found these 2 guys standing in the backyard with the board, just freaked out. And so we don't want anything to do with this. They gave it to him, and he's actually the one that burned the board. And he didn't tell me or tell his brother. And so the story is we started talking to this guy he said his name was Peter. His sister had been kidnapped. He said she was bound and gagged in this boarded up house, and the kidnapper was going to kill her and burn the house down. Well, we lived in a small town. We knew everyone. And I'm like, that's just BS. I mean, we know everyone. It gave us an address. I'm like, all right, well, let's go check it out. So we drove over there, and I'll be damned, there was a boarded up house there that I right across from a field that I've never seen before. So this experience lasted the next 10 hours, all through the night. He kept saying, you need to save my sister. You need to save my sister. And we would go from the board over to the house and look around and try to yell and listen and look for lights. And then we'd freak ourselves out thinking, oh, if it is true, what if the killer is inside, or what if the killer is watching us? And so we'd go back to the house, and as soon as we would get back, the board would say, she's there, go back. And so finally my friend said, this is BS. This is not real. And the board, Peter, said, if you don't help my sister, you will die the same way that I died. And one of the first questions we asked when we first made contact with him was, how did you die? And he said he died in a car accident. So when that threat came through the board, we thought, oh, we don't know if we believe this now, but it just got a little bit more real. So we went back to the house again. By this time, it was 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning. We're like, we're skipping school. We need to figure this out. And we ended up going to the local newspaper office and looked in the microfiche department to see if we could corroborate Peter's story and find an obituary where a boy named Peter had died in a car accident. And we couldn't find anything, but then we thought, well, if it didn't happen in that little town, then it wouldn't be there. So we went to the sheriff, and the sheriff didn't believe us and sent us away. And we just forgot about it. About 3 weeks after that, the house burned down. And 2 years to the date that threat came through, my friend died in a car accident. To the date.
That is insane.
Yeah.
And did they find a woman in the house when it burned down?
They didn't. And I have a theory. I don't know for sure, but I have a theory, and it's in the book. I believe the sheriff was involved. Because the sheriff was the first one on the scene.
Yeah.
And he was small town. He was the only law enforcement in the town. So that's the one area of the book that it's 98% true. And that's the 2% where this is what I believe about the sheriff. That experience has, I carry a lot of shame and guilt.
Yeah.
Because I felt it was my fault. And so when I started writing this, I thought, you know what? I need to stop. I need to find a way to get past this. And if I can get past this and at the same time help someone else, then I felt like I will do him justice.
Yeah.
It won't make it right, but I just had a show here, the Texas Hunters Convention last weekend, and I must have talked to probably close to 2,000 people. And what I realized, and this made me so proud, is because of the content of Ouija boards and the paranormal and occult things like that, much like our community, you can't really talk about it openly in a lot of spaces because for a variety of reasons, you're going to be bullied or ridiculed or, and so there's a lot of similarities between the LGBTQ plus community and what happens in the paranormal environment. So at this show, I realized that I'm really thankful for this, that it seems like I've become a safe place where people can actually come and talk about those experiences and share their thoughts and their feelings and their beliefs with me without the feeling of being judged or shamed. And that is even better than what I had intended because It's giving people a chance not to be fearful and not to be able to let their light shine and not have to hide these secrets. I've had people reach out to me from all over the world since the book came out just a couple of months ago and tell me about the story. And since then, since the book has come out, I've also written a short film, and we are in the process of looking for funding for the short film. We're in the early conversations with Hasbro to hopefully get them on board to where I can write a full-length feature movie. And this is just my opinion. I've seen all of the other Ouija movies, but to me, they seem kind of cheesy. That's just my own opinion. So this is based on true. I mean, I've had people tell me that it gave them nightmares. My niece is a big true crime buff, and she had to read it in 3 different sections. And you mentioned the Claymore Award for Killer Nashville, and that's a finalist in the true crime category. So it's resonating with a lot of people. And I want to be able to be that safe spot, whether it's not just for people with Ouija experiences, but also people in our community that don't have someone that they could really talk to and feel that they could actually just talk and just get it off their chest. I wish that there were more people, and there are a lot.
I bet you've heard some amazing stories from people, right? I mean, just that they feel safe. I mean, I feel like there's so many books from that you could probably write about these experiences you've heard about.
Yes, there are.
Can you tell me the strangest one, or the one that interested you the most, or that you thought was the most bizarre?
So there's 2.
Okay.
We had an interview last Thursday for this TV series that 7 networks are interested in. And so we're interviewing people for their personal, authentic stories, and we're getting ready to pitch it to these networks. So there is one story. So my regular job is I own a trade show and event business. And I'm looking to transition out of that and be able to do writing and filmmaking full time. One of my contacts from my trade show company, I was sharing this experience with him, and he's like, "Oh, my aunt has had her experience." And I said, "We'd love to talk to her on camera if she's comfortable." Well, 5 minutes later, I got a text from his other cousin saying, no, but he and his wife are interested. And so we interviewed them, and the husband and wife couple, they are active in their church, and we, to keep their identity private, they consult the board on a weekly basis. And exactly. I saw the look on your face. Yes. Yeah. So they've never had a bad experience, and they have been doing this for years. So that was one of the big things that surprised me and shocked me, is not everyone has had a bad experience, but I can say 100% of the people that have had bad experience haven't respected the board or the power of the board. So I think that's where the biggest thing. The other story, and we'd like to interview her, is there is a girl that when she was 14, she was typical slumber party, teenage girl, slumber party. They pull out the Ouija board. It was 3:00 in the morning. There was 3 of them sitting around the table. One of the girls took her fingers off the planchette and just got up and walked out of the room. The other 2 thought, oh, she's just going to the bathroom. It's been 21 years ago, and she's never been seen or heard from since.
Oh my, that is insane.
Yeah. She just got up and walked out of the room and disappeared.
And she was 14?
She was 14. And they've never been able to find any trace. Where the friend that told us about that, the third girl that was there, we were hoping that we can share that experience. What I want to do with the book is, yes, I love to scare people. I want them to feel the chills and things. But more importantly, I want them to understand that so many people think this is a game, and they treat it like a game, and they think, oh, it's fun. It's, but the more people that I interview and the more people that I talk to, overwhelmingly, there's a lot of people that have heard all the stories, and their parents and friends don't use it, don't do it, but there's still something that's tugging them toward it. Mm-hmm. And just this last weekend, I must have spoken with several hundred like that. And so my book is not about advocating or, hey, use the board. It's just my personal story. But if you choose to use it, do it with respect. There are certain rules and protocol that you need to follow to keep yourself safe. And so we put together a Ouija safety guide that we were handing out. Like, these are the 13 rules that you make your own decision. We just want you to be aware that this is powerful. If you don't follow the protocol and if you break the rules, like the girl we talked to on Thursday, she used it alone. And that's one of the big things. And, there's people that we've talked to that thought, oh, it'd be fun and exciting to use it in a cemetery. And it's really, really scary. And it's also very exciting. And it can be an exciting, non-threatening activity if it's used, just like anything else, if it's used the right way, if you respect it.
I would not use a Ouija board now after talking with you, though. I'm just saying. Like, I did it whenever I was in 5th grade at my house. I had 5 or 6 friends over after school, or it was a Saturday or something. And we did it on my parents' dining room table. My mom and dad were not home. And I don't know if somebody was really moving it or not, but I don't even know what happened to it afterwards. But it did move. I'm pretty sure it moved on its own. And it wasn't anybody doing it, because we kept, like, one person that wasn't doing it was looking, like, nobody's fingers are really actually touching it. They're just hovering over it. So yeah, and that's the only time I think I've ever done it. But did anybody die from that experience? No. But I guess we respected it, though, also. So maybe that's.
Do you remember how you felt when, like, the feeling you felt when you saw it start moving?
Yeah, I think my first thing is, like, who's moving it? Somebody's doing this. And then I think we finally realized that nobody was moving it. Something was moving it. And I think that's what, it was just like, it was kind of I don't know, you kind of get, your adrenaline really kind of rushes whenever that happens. And I was obviously a little scared about it, because I'm like, you don't think about the other side. I think at that time I was still, I had, you die and go to heaven, and you die, you go to hell. Like, I didn't believe about there's any of these spirits or anything out there. So I think I was still in that mind frame at 10 years old, where I still believe that. And so, yeah, but it was, I'm trying to think which friends were there. I know 2 friends that were there, and I'm friends with them on Facebook still, but I would have to really try to think about who the other ones were. But
it's really interesting to me, and the more I talk to people and show my story, I've told the story several thousand times. I still get goosebumps. I can remember how I felt, and the electricity and the air temperature and the breeze on my face. I still remember that. I still get goosebumps. But one of the things I always want to make sure that everyone knows is that veil is very thin. And I thought for it to be successful, it had to be this old wooden board with thousands of years of souls trapped inside. Well, that's just not the case. Mine was Milton Bradley or Parker Brothers cardboard game with a plastic planchette.
That's what mine was too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Someone told me at the show they got theirs at Toys R Us, and I've also had people tell me that they've made their own board and it's worked. I even had someone tell me that they went online and found one and printed off the image, and that worked. So it's very easy. They want access, to us. And so it's more important than ever to make sure that we're doing it responsibly, that if, I don't recommend doing it, because a lot of people, when they get caught up in it, it is very exciting at first. And then they start to take risks, and then they start to get hooked on it. And then they start to use it alone, or they use it when they're vulnerable and they're sad, looking for, hey, tell me something happened.
Looking for answers and stuff.
Exactly. And it's those times where the strength and the power really comes, and then something can be attached. I had someone tell me again at the show that they started using it, with friends, and then their friends had one use it again. So they started using it on their own. And he said his uncle used the same board, and I think that's where he got it. His uncle had used it, and I think that's the one that he used. And he said he's 54 now. His entire life since then, he feels that there's something trapped inside him. That his wife, and matter of fact, in my booth at the show, and he told his wife, he said, "Go ahead and keep walking." He said, "I want to talk to Scott." And I saw him wait till she got far enough out of earshot. And he said that she'll wake him up in the middle of the night, and he's speaking in this growl tone and speaking within languages that she's never heard of before. And I told him, I said, "You know what?" I said, "I've never personally seen that.
Yeah.
But the more I get into this, of course, I want to be that safe spot, because he can't talk about it with anyone else.
Yep.
I want, so if I can be someone to help him understand that and help him somehow to get past that, and we talked about some things that he could do to do that. And he's like, "I just ignore it." And I said, "Well, the problem with that is the more you ignore it, the stronger and the more persistent it's going to be.
Yeah.
And eventually it's going to wear you down. And the more it wears you down, the more vulnerable you become. And the more vulnerable you become, the more power they get over that. So it's better to address it head on, to kick it out, get rid of it, and be able to live the rest of your life without that feeling."
And how long is he? He's 54. When did this happen originally with him?
He said he was 5 or 6.
Oh, wow. He's been living his whole life with this?
Yeah. And I told him, I said, it's not going to go away. It's been with you for 50 years, basically, or 49 years. You need to address it. I mean, I don't want to, say it like that, but I'm like, address it and get it out, because his wife is a very, very devout Catholic. I mean, she even had an issue stopping at the booth. But after we had the conversation, he caught up with his wife, and then he came back again and said, "I want to come back and talk to you more." So, I mean, that told me there's no one else that he could really talk to. And so I wanted to give him that outlet. But
what could he do, though, to rid himself of this?
There's a couple of things. One of the easiest things, and I've never really been into crystals or anything like that, but I am, the more I get into this, I'm not an expert in Ouija boards, or the occult or paranormal, but I am learning just so much. Selenite and, oh my gosh, it's another crystal basically that I have a little vial, I want to be safe than sorry. I have a little vial up at my file cabinet here, and it's a black crystal and it's a white crystal, and it's supposed to be for cleansing bad energy and for protection. So I suggested that. I had some at the booth that I said, "Here, take this." And he's like, no, I want to buy it. I'm like, "No, take it." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to come back and get it, because I don't want my wife, I don't want to freak her out anymore." I also told him, I said, one of the more common ways is you can get sage and you can burn sage.
Yeah.
And he said, "We've done sage." And I said, "Well, when was the last time?" And he said, "Oh, it's probably been 20 years. And I said, "Well, you don't want to have to keep doing it every single day, because then it becomes a job. You want to get rid of this once and for all."
Yeah.
So again, going back to the original point of me wanting to talk to him and to let everyone know that this is real, and it can have long lasting effects on your life and on your relationship, on your personality. So if you choose to do it, just do it responsibly and make sure that you're taking all the necessary precautions, that nothing attaches and things like that. So it's been therapeutic for me. I hope it's been helpful for others.
Yeah.
And the more I talk about it, the more I feel that at least I'm doing some small action to help hopefully protect someone else from getting in the same situation that I did, because we didn't know the rules.
Yeah.
And we didn't do any of that. But
just the crystals I believe in, and I was not a believer in crystals at all either. My aunt, who is into sage and crystals and all that, she's a Reiki master. She's very into this. And so I started taking a medium class, because anybody can be a medium. And I kind of did it for my podcast, to be honest, just to kind of talk about the experience of taking a medium class. And I don't talk about it often because it actually worked. And I took it for about a year. And then I've had all this stuff happen. My father died in 2008. And there's been many experiences that happened. I knew it was him. And about 2 months ago, I kept having really like uncomfortable nightmares and bad sleep and stuff. And so my aunt sent me I just was texting her during this, 'cause I couldn't remember, amethyst is what she sent me, an amethyst crystal. And she says, put it under your pillow and it will help you keep away those kind of nightmares and help you have a more restful sleep. I did it and I had no more nightmares. All that stuff was gone. However, what happened is that one night I started having nightmares again, and like it was really horrible nightmares. And I looked under the pillow, and the crystal was gone. I looked everywhere. I looked under the bed. I looked in all the pillowcases to see if it was happened. It was completely gone. So I told my aunt, and I said, I'm going to order another one. And I ordered another one from somewhere, and it came. I put it in it's a bigger one than the one she gave me. I put it in a pillowcase, and I put it under my pillow, and I slept fine. I was probably like 2 weeks later, that crystal disappeared and hers came back.
Really?
And then I was talking with her on the phone saying, somebody, your crystal's back. There's nobody that could have done this because the cleaning lady wasn't there that day. Like, there's nobody that would have been able to do this. And I lifted up my pillow because I was going to take a picture of it and send it to her. And my crystals were back and hers was there too.
Really?
Now, this past couple of days, within the last 5 days, her crystal is gone again.
Really?
And then this morning, I woke up like at 4 a.m. to use the bathroom. And because she's like, somebody's trying to tell you something, like there's something happening. And I woke up, and whenever I was going to the bathroom at 4 a.m, and I was half asleep, but I felt like I was in my childhood house that I grew up, and I felt my father. And I'm like, it's my dad that's here to tell us something. And I called my aunt this morning before our interview and told her, I said, it's my dad. And she goes, he's always there when something happens, and there's been a little bit of drama in the last couple of weeks with something that I've been working on, and he's around now. So it's always, but there's been stuff where I was talking on the phone with him, and in this bathroom that I lived in Miami, and in this bathroom, there was like a window shelf, and I had a picture of him when he was a little boy sitting on this shelf. Nobody ever used that bathroom ever because it was a small shower and all this stuff. And I hear something fall, and I go in there to the bathroom and I look, and if the picture would have fell, it would have fell straight forward. Like, it wouldn't have fell. This picture was taken and it was thrown through the shower curtain. And because it's not like there was a window open that blew it or anything, because there was only this one window that was closed. And that same week I had these 5 pictures on my work desk, and they all fell right over in front of me at the same time. And there's just been like other things that have happened with my father. So, and I just know it's him. I can feel it's him. So I'm just telling you about this more about the crystal, and I started babbling, but I didn't believe into the crystals at all. But now I totally do. So I think that they are a protection in some way.
You know, my sister-in-law, she was homeless for years. When we moved to Texas, she ended up moving in with us and living with us for quite a few years. And she ended up losing her 23-year-old son in a horrific car accident. And I will never understand how crippling that is.
Yeah.
And especially for such a horrific accident.
Yeah.
So she, in her grief, trying to get through, I mean, she reached out to everything she could. You know, she tried ayahuasca, Reiki, she got into the crystals. And that was one of the things that whenever Paul and I were actually in the process of trying to move from Texas for a variety of reasons to Colorado. And so when we were there last, we ended up finding this just amazing crystal shop. And so we went in and we had this long conversation with the guy that owned the shop about, hey, this is my sister-in-law is having this. You know, he said, this crystal is really good for helping with grief. Mm-hmm. This crystal is really good for reclaiming your life and getting your self-worth back. So we ended up bringing her probably about $200 worth of crystals back, and she had it in the room, and she started doing better and doing great. And she decided, all right, I'm going to move out. And so she rented a room, and less than 3 weeks later, she didn't take all of her crystals, and about 3 weeks later, she ended up having a heart attack, and she was only 51. And unfortunately, Paul found her, and it was very traumatic. And this was just a couple of months ago. So
Yeah.
when it comes to crystals, I feel like I've seen, and your story just proves it as well, that there are healing effects,
Yeah.
and there's definitely something to crystal, and I believe that the selenite and I want to say lumet, I can't believe it. I've talked about it all weekend and all last week, and of course now that I'm on camera I can't think of it, but.
And you can email me afterwards, and I'll put it in the description so people know, because I'm sure people are going to want to know what the crystal is. So
Yes, I'll definitely do it.
Okay.
Awesome.
I do want to go back and ask you a question just about the serial killer and how you found out that, and what happened there? Like, how did you know he was trying to kill you? Did he actually try to kill you?
When I ran into him, you know who Robert Durst is?
Yes.
It was Robert Durst.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was right after he had just been acquitted from killing Morris Black in Galveston and cutting his body up and throwing in the 5 bags in Galveston Bay. He was actually, even though he was acquitted, his first wife, Kathy, the New York DA, was after him for that. They didn't have a body, but they knew he did it, so they were waiting until his trial was over in Galveston, and then they were going to get him. So he was actually running, and he was going to Beverly Hills to kill Susan Berman, who was his best friend at the time, and she was running out of money. And of course, Robert Durst, with the Durst Corporation, the billionaires, and so she was blackmailing him, saying she's going to tell the police where his first wife's body is, because she knew if he didn't give her money. And so he made 2 payments, and he decided to, all right, I'm not going to do this anymore. So he was on his way from Galveston to Beverly Hills to kill her. And he was in Albuquerque and disappeared for a month at the same time that we were in the Grand Canyon. So when I first met him, I thought, again, I didn't know who he was. I thought, oh, this guy's really cool. He's unique. And he had said that I was the first person that he'd seen or talked to in a month. And I'm like, you've been down here. And we were down there over Christmas. And so while there was a whiteout at the top of the canyon, down at the bottom, we still had a jacket, but it was a lot warmer. Yeah. But the only thing he had was, for being a month in the Grand Canyon, was a purple, blue, and white tracksuit and very minimal supplies, which I thought was odd. But I'll tell you one thing, just kind of give you an idea of the crazy. So there were 2 animals I wanted to see when we were in the Grand Canyon that are only found there. One was the California condor.
Okay.
And the other was this type of bighorn sheep, and they're very elusive. And so when I was talking to him, and he said that he had been there in the canyon for, last month, and I was the first person he had talked to, I asked him, I said, wow, I said, that's incredible. And he was really animated, and I'm like, this guy's really interesting. And I said, so have you seen a California condor? And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, they're amazing. And he closed his eyes, and he stretched his arms out, and he's like, they just fly majestically. And he's just, he's going around in circles and just I get goosebumps thinking about it. Telling me about this. And then I said, well, what about the bighorn sheep? Do you see one of those? And I'm not embellishing this at all. This is exactly what he said. And I hope it's not too much for the listeners.
No, go for it. Tell me.
I asked him, and he said, yeah. He said, that feeling you get when you're being watched? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, my wife and I were hiking, and I got that feeling, and I looked over my shoulder, and there was a big adult female bighorn sheep there. And he said, she had bazongas out to here. And I'm like, odd. And then he took a step closer, and we were close, and he just tapped my arm, and he said, and you know what? I would have tried to suck him if my wife wasn't there.
Oh.
Yeah, he actually said that. And my jaw, just hit the floor. It's hard to give me. I mean, I talk a lot. It's hard to shut me up. That shut me up. And he was laughing about it. I laughed about his joke, and it took me a few moments to kind of come back to reality. I'm like, did he really just say that? And then I thought, well, wait a second. You just told me that I was the first person that you've seen or talked to in a month, but you just mentioned your wife. And he was laughing about his joke when I said that. He's like, you better not talk about my wife. You better not ask about my wife. And if you tell anyone about my wife, you're not going to live to see tomorrow. And that happened twice. So I believe that there's at least one, if not two more victims that the police don't know about that are in the Grand Canyon. And so he really wanted my friend's wife. And I introduced him to them. Yeah. And she, from the beginning, she's like, there's something wrong about this guy. And so the very last day, we were on a 5-day hike. The first 3 days we were in Phantom Ranch at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And we just use it as a base. We're just doing these day hikes. Well, the last day hike that we were doing before we were going to go off into the backcountry was the Overlook Trail, basically. And so she decided that she didn't want to go. And my friend, her husband, said, well, Scott and I will go. So we went up. And I don't know if you've been to the Grand Canyon, but when you're on those trails, there are no railings on the trails. Yeah. I mean, and sometimes those trails are, 12 to 18 inches wide, and it drops, 2,000 feet down. Yeah. And it goes up. There's nothing that blocks the view of the trail. So when you're up there, you can look back and see the entire trail and the switchbacks all the way back. And with the color of the Grand Canyon, the shades there, but also with his tracksuit, the purple, blue, and white tracksuit, it really had a contrast. So we could see, we were probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours up on the trail, and we kept looking back, and there was nobody following us. Nobody on the trail. And my friend's wife had her a powder blue coat on, and we could see she wanted to stay and read. So she was down in this little cluster of rocks at the trailhead, and we could see her little powder blue coat. It just, the higher we got, the smaller it got. So we looked over there, and we're like, oh, she must have went back to the campsite. And all of a sudden we hear, hey guys, what are you doing? And we turn around, and so he told me his name was Mark. And because he knew so much about the condors, I nicknamed him Condor Mark. Okay. So I turned around and I said, Condor Mark, what are you doing up here? And he wasn't paying attention to me at all. He was staring at my friend, and who I was on the inside of the trail, away from the edge. And my friend was right at the edge, looking over, because he just was looking for his wife. And Condor Mark was kind of in the middle, coming up the trail. Well, he was staring straight at my friend, and just like the movies, he reached into his pocket, and as he was staring at my friend, he slowly pulled on these black leather gloves. As he's slowly walking toward him, he's like, where's your wife? And my friend's like, well, she's probably back at the campsite. He's like, no, she's not. I was just there. And I'm like, yeah, you get this dreaded feeling. And I'm watching him getting closer to my friend, who was sitting right next to the edge. And I'm thinking, I need to do something to distract him and stop what I hope is not happening. And at the trailhead, across from where the rocks were that she was hiding in, there was an orange tent that was set up in a protected area. Okay. And I remember telling my friend, I said, what a douche. I mean, that's a protected area. No one's supposed to be there. Certainly not a tent. Well, that was the first thing that popped into my head. So I told him, I said, Condor Mark, did you see that orange tent? I'm like, who would put that in a protected area? That's not even supposed to be there. And he was advancing toward my friend. And when I said that, he stopped, he flipped to me, and he said, you better not look in that tent. You better not tell no one about that tent, or you're not going to see tomorrow. And I'm like, whoa, calm down. I said, I thought we were friends. And he turned back to my friend. And it was that point I realized he's going to push, because it was at least 1,500, 2,000 foot drop. There's no way that,
He
he's
would have
going
survived,
to push. Exactly. So he was going to push my friend off, and then he would have had to push me off as well. He would have had to kill me. And so I looked, and then I think about the same time, my friend and I, we kind of figured it out. And I don't have telepathic skills or the gift, but I was thinking, if he takes one more step toward him, I'm going to rush him and push him off. And he took a step. And my friend understood exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And I went to rush to push Hunter Mark off, and my friend jumped to the inside right at the last minute. And so that way, both of us were on the inside, and now he was by the edge. And I'm glad that didn't happen, because that would have been hard to live with.
Yeah.
Even though I felt it was
protecting yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So we take off running down the trail, and we kept looking back, and what took us about an hour and a half to get up to, maybe 2 hours, took us about 30 minutes to get down. And he was not, again, we were looking for him specifically, and he was not following us. So as soon as we went into Phantom Ranch, the ranger was there, and the ranger said, "Well, we've been looking for you guys. I know you're going into the back country tomorrow." And I said, "Well, wait, I've got something to tell you." And he's like, no, I want to tell you first. I'm like, no, seriously, I've got to tell you this. And he said, then his radio went off, and he talked on it, and put it in, and he's like, no, what are you going to tell me? And I said, well, and I got about that far, and I hear, oh, what are you guys talking about? And so we're going into Phantom Ranch. Phantom Ranch is here. The ranger is here facing us. We hear it behind. We turn around, and Connor Mark is walking up behind us. So we go on the other side of the ranger, and Connor Mark goes up and stands next to the ranger. And I said, oh, we were just saying that was a great hike and more people should do it. All right, we'll see you. Bye. And we turn around and start walking away. And the ranger, not knowing or understanding what had happened or what was happening, thought he'd make a joke. And he said, hey, I just wanted to let you guys know that I know you're going into the back country tomorrow, and you're the only ones that are going to be back there because you're the only ones that have the permit. So don't get hurt, because no one's going to hear you scream. Mm-hmm. And this creepy smile just came across Condor Mark's face. So we came up with a plan of what we're going to do. And so I don't want to give away, but that's the that's the gist of the story. It's crazy.
Everybody needs to read the book. That is amazing stories. It's even more crazy that it was Robert Durst. Like, that's even more insane.
When I lived in Los Angeles, I went to his trial after he killed Susan Berman. I went to his trial. I was the only civilian that was allowed in, and I sat right behind him on the first row. And at one point, he turned around and looked at me right in the eyes. We were probably 3 feet away. And I looked at him like, do you remember me? Because I remember you.
Yeah.
And by that point, it had been about 10 years, mm-hmm. and he had aged considerably, but he'd also changed pretty much his entire physical appearance. He had implants put in. He had all the money to do it. He went to Japan and got these contacts put in that make his eyes blink. And that was the key, because I started to doubt that it was him, but that was the key, because I remember Condor Mark kept blinking like that.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the Jinx or you've seen anything, you notice that he blinks all the time. Yeah. And that was the key thing that I'm like, oh my gosh. And then when I was watching so I was actually at the trial, and while I was there that first day, I went to one of the bailiffs and I said, hey, I think that there's at least one, if not two more victims. And I think if there are, I think I might know where they're buried. I believe he killed his wife his other wife in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
For some reason, cut a hole in the bottom of the tent, buried her, and he was going to pick up the tent and leave it, and no one would even know because it's a protected area, and no one would even look there. So I told him, I said, he's like, well, stay here, let me go get someone to talk to you. And he left and came back about 30 minutes later. He said, I'm sorry. He said, everyone is busy. Can you come back? It was Friday. He said, can you come back Monday? And I said, absolutely. Well, COVID hit. and court was shut down, and we couldn't afford California anymore. So we ended up moving. Paul got a job here, so we ended up moving here, and I've never been contacted. So it's just there's so many different layers to that. I mean, and that's just the overall. There's other things that happen that. So I've already written the movie for that one. I'm in the process of adapting it to a book. For Marked by the Ouija, that's currently on Amazon. And the short film, we're hoping to get it to start filming that. One of my best friends in LA, that she's actually has written several short films, and her current film, Gaslighter, is winning awards right and left. So she actually wrote the foreword for Marked by the Ouija. So she's going to be the director for it, for that. And then the short film, or I'm sorry, the TV series, if there's anyone that has any true, authentic experiences that they would be interested in sharing on camera, we'd love to talk to them and see if it fits within the format of this. And then hopefully we'll have the full feature, the Ouija feature, based on everything about the book, because it's so different from just the ones that are out now. So there's a lot going on. And I've got a few other projects. There's another TV series related to the LGBTQ plus community that I've already started writing. That's actually my husband's favorite story. And that is going to be, I think, hope, it depends on how I write it. Hopefully that will end up being a great thing. But so there's a lot of exciting things going on.
I mean, you are the perfect guest because you have so many awesome stories, and you're hearing. I love it that you're also going and talking with people, and they're telling you stories to probably, hopefully, influence you to write maybe even more stories about the paranormal with them as well. I mean, it's like the guy that was for 50 years now. That's a story right there on its own, just to kind of follow what's happened with him and stuff. So amazing. You're gonna, like I said, I could probably talk to you for another 5 hours and be happy with it. So thank you so much.
Well, we'll have to do it again.
Yes,
again sometime. Maybe when the short film comes.
Let me know. And please come back, because I think this episode's going to do very well. I think because people are going to be so interested in you. So if you want to learn more about Scott, go to scottwellsauthor.com. I'll put that in the description of the podcast or the video. Are you on social media or anywhere that people would want to find you?
I am. On Instagram is at Twisted Tales Author.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, I have a Scott Wells Author Facebook page, but the majority of the content we post is on Facebook is Twisted Tales.
Okay.
Twisted Tales Facebook page. I also have Substack, which Substack is really, we're really building that, and that is Twisted Tales as well. And with that, we're actually posting additional content, behind the scenes type things. With this short film that we've come in, we're actually offering 2 spots, where there's 2 opportunities for people to join us on set while we're filming.
Wow.
And then there's also, we're going to be offering about 10 opportunities where people can actually get their name in the credits, so they can actually get involved. So a lot of that's going to be on Substack, and we're about ready to roll out that campaign right now. So
what's your Substack name?
Twisted Tales.
Twisted Tales. Okay, great. I'll put all this in the description of the podcast or video. And I will put links. Your books are all on Amazon, correct?
Yes. Yep.
I'm buying both of them today that we talked about today. So I will go out today and buy them, and I'll put the links for your books also in the description of this podcast or video. So
Phantom Ranch isn't out yet. I'm still working on that, but Marked by the Ouija is the one that's out right now. Okay. Phantom Ranch hopefully will, with the movie. Did you ever see Mean Girls?
Yes, a million times.
So the guy that her love interest, his character's name was Aaron Samuels.
Yeah, he's Jonathan. Yes, I love him. I follow him on Instagram.
Yes, so he is committed to play me in the Phantom Ranch movie. He was my first choice to play me, so we approached him, and he's interested. I'm like, great, here's someone. I wanted someone better looking than me to
I mean, he was hot then and he's still hot now. Like I love him.
He's a great guy. He's got just a heart of gold. So we're also Ozzy Osbourne just passed away, unfortunately. But Jack, we are in the process of reaching out to work on a project with him because we feel that
he does the paranormal show.
Absolutely, there's a lot of similar interests there. So we're hoping to get him involved. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on. And I'll once we get off, I'll email you those two crystals. It's selenite and
email them to me and I'll put them in there. So
fantastic. It's so great to meet you.
It was so great meeting you too. You were an amazing guest. And again, scottwellsauthor.com. I will put all these links into the description. So go out and support. And again, look at Scott's his stories when he was a kid. Like I don't know what I love them. The Lost Puppy, Trouble on the Way to School. Like they're all so cute. And I went through and was looking at them and I loved it. So you're an amazing person. I love it again that you went from California to Detroit to try to save this woman, and you just are an all around. There's a good vibe with you. So I'm so happy I got to meet you. So
thank you. The feeling is mutual.
Thanks everybody for listening. Be sure to leave a comment and go follow Scott on Facebook or Instagram and definitely on Substack. And thanks everybody for listening and see you next week. Thanks again, Scott.
Thank you.